Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated, and the learning for this entire week is sponsored by the Torah Center Silver donor, Jonathan Cohen, loving memory Nishmat, Jonathan's father, Zalman Cohen, Zalman ben Hana. Also dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of Eliyahu Shlomo Zar Fortuné and the continued health of Chana Bat Sima Fega. Breakfast in the Class also dedicated to Nishmat and loving memory of Nisim Zaga, Allah Shalom Nisim ben Salcha. And the year of Breakfast in the Class dedicated to loving memory of Nishmat, Ruth or Farhi Bat Adela, sponsored by her family, and as well dedicating the merit for a speedy and complete Refuah Shlema for Amir Haim ben Farouk, sponsored anonymously. Did I miss any other ones? No. Okay, let's begin. First of all, I just want to share with everybody, we have an unbelievable zechut and an honor to have with us today 10 mayors of cities in Israel. Yishtabach Shemo. We have a minyan of mayors. I don't know if there's a special kaddish that you say, but when you have that many mayors in town, but it's very, very special. I'm wondering if you guys can hang out a little bit longer, and maybe teach the mayor of New York how do they, it's election season. So of course we now have in the city with the most Jews in America, the mayor decided now in election season to institute a task force for anti-Semitism. So that's coming from no political reason. It's coming just from the purest place, from a very pure place. Okay. So Baruch Hashem, Baruchim Avim, the rest of the mayors. This is like the beginning of a joke. I don't know. I went to shul this morning and there were 10 Israeli mayors there. I don't know what the punchline is. Hang out long enough with us and we'll all find out. Okay. Baruchim Avim, welcome. Please join us. Grab some food. Enjoy. Maybe someone make them a coffee, make them feel welcome, make them feel at home. Baruchim Abayim. Okay, let us begin. So I want to share with you a beautiful idea. The Torah tells us at the end of the parasha something very interesting. Vayanichuhu b'mishmar lifrosh lahem al pi amonai. What are we talking about over here? There are two instances that the Jewish people are speaking with these random cases. One was the case known as the Mikoshesh Etzim, the wood chopper. The other was the case of the Mikalel, the one that cursed publicly Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Now, in each case, they had to decide what to do with them. So the Torah says over here that they put the Mikalel, they put him in prison, b'mishmar, lifrosh lahem, in order to see what should be done with this man. Okay? Now, what's interesting about this is, I mentioned this the other day when we were learning in our Gemara session. In Judaism, there is no punitive punishment called incarceration. It's fascinating. In Jewish law, there's no such thing as prison. Do you know that? Now, obviously, there might be times when you might need to put someone in prison while you're waiting for something else, right? But there's no punishment called prison. There's lashes, there's capital punishment, thank you, Nathan, right? There's other things, but there is not, jail time is not a punishment in Judaism. Okay? So I don't think it's on. It's muted? Okay, Mechila. How's that now? Good? Okay. So, what does it mean that they put him in prison? The only reason why they put him in prison was because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what the law was. The law had not yet been taught to them about the Mikalel. So I want to share with you a magnificent piece. Let me read to you what Rashi says. What does it mean, Vayanichuhu? They put him in prison. Velo henichu levado. They put him alone. Velo henichu mikoshesh imo. They did not put him in the same prison cell together with the woodcutter, the person who was Mechalel Shabbat. Sheshneim ayu beperek echad. Both of these cases happened at the same time. V'yodeim ayu, they knew at that time that the punishment for the mikoshesh, for the wood chopper, was b'mitah. They knew he was supposed to die. Shneimar mechalelei mot yumat. They know that the person who transgresses Shabbat, mot yumat. That was the halacha. Avalo purash lahem be'ezumita. They didn't know how the death penalty was supposed to be administered. Lekach ne'emar, therefore it says, by this case of the wood chopper, Kilo purash meyaselo. It was not yet explained to them how to do what they were going to do to him. Aval b'mekalel omer, but with the mekalel, it doesn't say lifrosh lahem meyaseh, how to do. But rather it just says lifrosh lahem. They had no idea what the punishment was. So let's review. The mekalel, they had no idea what the punishment was. The mikoshesh, they know what the punishment is. They just don't know how to administer it. Says Rashi, therefore, you could not put the two of them together. Lesh. Why can't they be together? Well, because one, we know the punishment, one, we don't know the punishment. The Sfarim answers something unbelievable. Just so special. Says the Siftei Hayim. If you would have put the two of them together, the Mikalel would have thought, oh, they're putting me in the same prison cell as this guy who's going to die. I'm going to die. Now they didn't know yet that actually the law was on the Mikalel also there's a punishment of death. But until they figured out what the halakha was, they could not put him in a place where he might be afraid, where he might be in pain. So therefore, vayanichu levado, they put him separately. What an unbelievable meser we're learning over here in life. That when it comes to a person, you know that this person you might expose them or they might experience pain. How careful we have to be, even for a maybe, a perhaps, a could be, this might cause somebody pain, is already enough for us to be able to say, you know something, I can't deal with this together. Can't put these two people in the same room. We can't make these two people think. I remember once, I had a guy, he came to ask me for tzedakah. So I knew that in my wallet that day, I only had hundreds. Why? Because I had no money and I went to make a withdrawal and I needed to pay someone. The cleaning lady only likes to take cash. By the way, even though she's legal, even though she pays taxes, only likes to pay cash. Okay. Anyway, so I knew I only had $100 bills. The guy asked me, he said, could I ask you for tzedakah in the Beit Knesset? So I said, sure, but I need you to come back to me in 5 minutes. Okay? Guy comes back to me in 5 minutes. I gave him a donation. He said, can I ask you a question? I said, yes. He says, you were going to give me money anyway. Why did you ask me to wait 5 minutes? So I was embarrassed that the guy was calling me on it. I said, I'll tell you the truth. I said, how much am I going to give you? I'm a rabbi. I'm not going to give you a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money. I'm going to give you $5. I'm going to give you $10. If I open my wallet and all you see is hundreds, and then I give you $5, how do you feel? You feel like this guy has all this money. He gave me $5. What a cheapskate. I could have got more. So what did I do? I asked you for 5 minutes. In the 5 minutes, I went to the tzedakah station. I changed it all. Then when I pulled out the money, I pulled out $5. You feel great. You got $5 or $10. He said, wow. The man, this was a young man. He was, I think, collecting to be, he was a chatan. And he was he was moved. He said, that's so beautiful. He says, you know, people give you money when you need money, but they have no sensitivity for how they give you the money. In Yahadut, we see that even on a maybe off chance, I don't know if the Mikalel is going to think this or not. I don't know if the guy's going to think that or not. If he's going to look at my wallet, maybe yes, maybe no. On a maybe hurting someone's feelings, you have to run the other way. The Torah is designed to be able to develop within a person. Dirachea darche noam. V'chol netivotea shalom. I always love that expression. V'chol netivotea shalom. What does that mean? All of its pathways are shalom. Aren't there times when a person has to choose another path? Aren't there times when there's a path of war? Isn't there times that the Torah tells you that you have to go to war? So what does it mean? V'chol netivotea shalom. The answer is, my friends, even in war, in Judaism. There is an obligation to seek out peace. It does not mean that we become weak. It does not mean that we are avoiding wars that must be fought and that we're willing to end wars that need to continue. You have to do what you have to do. But before you reach out to war, says the Pasuk, you call out to the people in peace and say, do we have to go down this road? So you start the war with peace. And you treat the people, Be'ezat Hashem, we should all be zocheh, to even with people that we have milchama and machloket with, we should realize echol netivotea shalom. And in a scenario where the objective of the war is already achieved, to recognize that we need to shift back to a bechol netivotea shalom. I want to share with you a very powerful idea. We know that we are now during the period of Sfirat HaOmer. And I just want to share with you, in our parasha this week, the parasha says the mitzvah of Sfirat HaOmer. And I always point this out. A lot of times people, they don't know their Jewish history. So you ask someone, what is the Omer? Oh, that's when the students of Rabbi Akiva died. That's like saying that the Jewish people came to the land of Israel after the Holocaust. Well, you forgot that there was Israel for thousands of years before that. To say that Sfirat HaOmer is about Rabbi Akiva and his students is ridiculous. Because it's a pasuk in the Torah. Usfartem lachem mimahorat Shabbat. So there's counting of the Omer already in the days of the Torah. The sadness of the days of the Omer comes from the time of Rabbi Akiva. So the question is, you want to take a time to be able to mourn the students of Rabbi Akiva. Why did you put it here? Now I understand. The Gemara tells us this is when they died. So maybe this is the time of mourning because this is when they died. But of all the different times, you want to put the time where we mourn them in the time of joy, when we're counting down to the what's it called? To the reception of the Torah. Now this is when you count it. It seems like we should have planned the calendar a little bit better. We should have decided to mourn the students of Rabbi Akiva in the 9 days. That's anyway a time when we're not shaving. Anyway, that's a time of mourning. You're not listening to music. We couldn't figure out how to consolidate. Come on. The answer, my friends, I want to share with you is very beautiful. But really it goes back to a much earlier understanding. The Pasuk tells us, the Gemara tells us in Masechet Menachot. Gemara says as follows. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, B'sha'ah she'ala Moshe l'marom, when Moshe went to the heavens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was teaching him all of the Torah. But not only did he teach him Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra Bamidbar Devarim, he taught Moshe all of the Mishnayot, even before they'd been compiled into Mishnayot. He told him all of the halachot of the Gemara. He taught him even the Hidush that some Talmid Chacham would come up with 4,000 years later. He told him a Hidush that we came up with the breakfast in the class. Moshe says, is it breakfast in the class or breakfast and the class? Okay. What is cold brew? Okay. Regardless, the Pasuk says, the Gemara says, Mitza'ol HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he found God, Sheyoshev v'kosher kitarim le'otiyot. He was tying crowns on the letters. Shoe crowns. What does that mean? Tagin. Excellent. In a Sefer Torah, when you have a letter, you'll notice in the front, at the top of some of the letters, you see a little skinny line coming with almost looks like an upside down musical note. Right? Looks as it looks like. All right? And those are called the crowns on the letters. He finds God, and God is tying the crowns on the letters. Amar lefanav, Moshe says to God, Ribono shel olam, mi me'akev yadecha. What are you doing? Who's causing you to do this? Amar lo, Hashem says to Moshe, Adam echad yesh, there's a human, She'atid liyot b'sof kama dorot. He's going to live in a few generations. Ve'Akiva ben Yosef shemo. His name is Akiva, the son of Yosef. She'atid ledrosh al kol kotz ve'kotz tilin shel halachot. Each one of these kitanim, each one of them, if there's a few, he's going to be doresh on each tag halachot that are going to come out of that. That is the depth of his Torah knowledge. Amar lefanav ribono shel olam. Moshe says to God, Master of the world, yesh lecha adam kazeh, you have a man like this, va'ata noten Torah al yadi, and you're giving the Torah through me? I don't know what those are. You're telling me there's someone that's going to come, that's going to have that level of understanding of Torah, Rabbi Akiva? Let him give the Torah to the Jews. What a wild statement that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that this guy is going to be a greater Talmid Chacham than him. Amar lo, Hashem said, shetok, silence. Kach ala b'machshava lefanai. This is what I thought to do. The Gemara is sgura u'mesugeret. It's closed and it's closed. First of all, what is going on over here with these crowns, first of all? Second of all, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Moshe, silence, this is what I thought? Tell him why. You're telling him all the rest of your secrets. This one you got to keep. What is this conversation between Hashem and Moshe? So I want to share with you an insight. Rav Chatzkel Abramsky wrote that if Rabbi Akiva wrote so many tilin shel halachot on every little kot shel yud, he says, where do you find that? Which Gemara? Where are all these mountains of halachot? We should have 50 more Gemarot in Shas. Don't worry, I'm not talking about the political party. Relax. There should be all these masechtot with all these halachot. Where are the halachot? Says Rav Chatzkel Abramsky, something unbelievable. He says, you know where those halachot are? We lost them. And you know why we lost them? Because Rabbi Akiva taught all of those halachot to his 24,000 students. And when those 24,000 students died, the knowledge died with them. He started again, true, with 5 new students. Geonei Olam, Tanaim. But it was at a much later point in his life. He didn't have the time to be able to teach them all of his Torah. So what we have today is from them. But we're missing so much Torah that died with those students. Says Rav Chatzkel Abramsky, that's why, even though mourning is usually a limited period of time, how long is mourning? First 7 days, then a lighter form of 30 days, then afterwards 12 months. But after 12 months, the Gemara says there's a gezerah in Shamayim shetishakach hamet milev, from that the person who passed away should be, so to speak, should leave the heart. Even though we say to people we'll never forget them, if the mourning remained as fresh as it was during the period of mourning, we would never move on. Now, this is one of the big questions that they're grappling with in places like Kibbutz Be'eri. Is the mission to keep all the houses untouched so that we remember forever October 7th? Or is the mission to live life? Is the mission to rehabilitate, to rebuild? Fascinating what they said. I think the end they decided that they're going to leave some houses. But for every house that is destroyed, for every house that they leave over that is destroyed as a witness, they'll build 2 new ones. Kilu bana echad mechurvot Yerushalayim, like the Gemara says. So if death is eventually, so to speak, softened from a person's heart, so then how come Rabbi Akiva's students is something that we're still mourning till today? If you need to go, don't worry, you could go. It's okay. I'm used to people leaving my speeches. It's all right. It's okay, of course. You have here for very important things. You didn't come from Israel for breakfast in the class. All right. Skuvim too. Tamshichu lasot chayil be'ezat Hashem. Elaha de Meir's aneni. Okay. My friends, listen to this, because I believe this is beautiful. Says Rabbi Abramsky. You know why we're still mourning? Because we're not mourning the people. We're mourning the loss of such an ocean of Torah. Now, let me just drive this home. That loss of the ocean of Torah, it's not something that we once upon a time lost. It's something that we feel in every single day. Now we understand why the mourning period is during the time of Sefirat HaOmer. Because when we are going towards receiving the Torah, we can remember how much we lost and how dangerous it is when we don't respect one another, which is why the students died. My friends, I want to end by saying this because I believe that this is so beautiful. And I'm sure there's a Zohar somewhere that I'm not aware of that says this. But I leave it to somebody who is an expert to find it. Of all people in the world, it's Rabbi Akiva that was Doresh, that he interpreted the crowns of the letters. And why was that? You see, Al Chachamim tell us that every letter in the Torah represents something. In fact, the name of the Jewish people, Yisrael, stands for Yesh Shishim Ribo Otiyot La Torah. There are 600,000 letters in the Torah. How you arrive at that count, we've talked about in other places, of black fire, of white fire. But there's 600,000 Torah letters. Those represent the 600,000 core souls of the Jewish people. All of the Jewish people are elements of, parts of, recycled bits from those nishamot. But there are 600,000 souls of the Jewish people. Every Jew, what does he have? A letter in the Torah. Now you understand what was God doing when he was ready to give the Torah. He was tying crowns on the letters. Our Chachamim tell us that at Matan Torah, every Jew received crowns. Now we lost those crowns after we sinned with the Egel. But that's our lowest self, our present self, our physical self. The highest self, the neshama, represented by the letter in the Torah, that self maintained its crown. Rabbi Akiva was capable of interpreting every crown in the Torah. You know why? Because it was none other than Rabbi Akiva himself who taught Ze klal gadol ba'Torah. What is the most important rule in the Torah? Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. Love your friend as much as you love yourself. When we look at our friends with love, we recognize that they are wearing crowns. When we look at our friends with jealousy, we see them naked, debased, unimportant. So only the man of Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, the man who sees that that's the primary teaching of the Torah, is capable of seeing and noticing the crown on each letter. The Reshit Chochmah brings in the name of the Midrash that when a person dies and goes to heaven, there are questions they ask him. What are the questions they ask him? Do you have your Amex card with you? Shouldn't have left home without it. What are the questions they ask you in Shamayim? Gemara brings a set. The Midrash brings also a set. And in the Midrash, it brings that one of the questions they ask is Himlachta et chaverecha alecha. Himlachta alecha et chaverecha. Did you proclaim your friend as a king upon you? Who wears crowns? Only kings. If you treat your friend like a king, then that is one of the entry questions at the gates of Gan Eden. It doesn't say, did you treat your friend nicely? It doesn't say, did you buy him, did you share a Coke with friends? It says, did you crown him a king? Now, kings are kings over countries. You might be the king of Spain, you're going to be the king of Portugal, you're going to be the king of Israel, you're going to be the king of Hodu, all the way to Kush. Every king has an area in which they are king. Rabbi Akiva, he taught, or he tried to teach his students, he was the one who understood it. But when his students didn't take it to heart, we lost all of their Torah, says Rabbi Abramsky. And what was their Torah that we lost? The Tilei Tilin shel halachot. All of the halachot that were interpreted, that were learned from, the crown on each letter. Because they had not seen Shishim Ribo Otiyot Torah, the crown on the letter, i.e. the crown on their friends. My friends, I want to ask you, if this is not a beautiful piece of musar that we should be taking for ourselves, to treat somebody like a king. I'll end with this. There was a rabbi, his name was Rav Chaim Brim. He was known for being incredibly sharp, brilliant Torah scholar, very sharp tongue as well. One day, I think it was his son, it may have been his gabai, but he went with him to a big speech that the rabbi was giving. Anyway, the rabbi goes up and he takes out his piece of paper and he's holding his paper during his speech and he's teaching off of his paper. His son looks at him and he's thinking, I never saw my father teach from a piece of paper. I wonder why today of all days he wrote notes. Anyway, okay, he finishes the speech, he closes his chumash with the notes inside, and his son says, Daddy, let me carry it. He says, no, holding the chumash. Weird, he always let him put away his sefarim. Takes him home, goes inside, the rabbi puts the book down on his desk, and he leaves the room for a minute. His son, very curious, opens up the chumash that he wouldn't let him carry, takes out the notes to see what he wrote, and on the notes, on the paper, he saw it was only blank. He's so curious he can't hold it in. His father comes, he says, Dad, you never give paper, you never give issue. Not only that, you brought notes, you're reading from the notes, you don't let me hold the book. Obviously you didn't let me hold the book, you don't want me to see this. He says, well, what's going on? And the rabbi was a little embarrassed, he didn't think he'd get caught. And he says, I'll tell you the truth. He says, you're right, I don't usually. He said, but I noticed the speaker before me is a big Talmid Chacham. And I noticed him giving his shiur from notes. Now I'm going to walk up there and I'm going to give the shiur with no notes. So I saw a piece of paper on the table. I brought it, folded it in my pocket. And I kept referring back to the notes so that he shouldn't feel embarrassed and that other people shouldn't think any less of him as a Talmid Chacham. My friends, this is what it means. Himlachta et chaverecha alecha. If they were a king, how would you treat them? How sensitive would you be? On the one hand, we hear about making someone feel so beautiful, so careful, not to hurt someone's feelings. On the other hand, we see how sometimes a person is capable of being in a state of worry, of anxiety. And that's also something we should be sensitive to. I heard from Marcus Zolta. He remembers when he was working with Edmund Safra. Alav Shalom. He was in the bank, and there was a big meeting, and a lot of bankers had come in from all around the world for a big meeting with Edmund. There was someone that had sent a fax, and the fax was a fax. He needed money for Yom Tov. He didn't have enough money for the holiday. So Edmund said, let's send them some money for the holiday. So Marcus said, look, they're all waiting. We'll take care of it right after the meeting. Send it now, he said. He said, he said, send it now. He wouldn't leave. He wouldn't go to the meeting until he said, now it's not like now Zelle, 10 seconds. Got to do a whole wire transfer. Finally, Marcus asked him, what was he says, someone is sitting, wherever he is in the world. He doesn't know how he's going to make the holiday. Every second that he sits in that pain is nerves, anxiety, worry, fear. For us, it doesn't make a difference if we send it now or later. But if he has the money a little bit earlier, then we saved him not only from his need, but we saved him also from his pain. We saved him 2 hours of pain. What a gorgeous way of giving tzedakah. To think not only of solving the problem, but how do I solve the problem earlier? In the end, the Mekalel winds up actually getting also the death penalty. But the Torah says, Vayanichuhu, they put him levado. So for that little amount of time, until Moshe got the answer, he shouldn't think to himself, you know what, I'm sitting with that guy, and that guy's on death row. Maybe I'm also on death row. Even on a maybe, the Torah says, Himlachta alecha chaverecha. Hashem should bless us that we should be, in this time, so aware and cognizant that we should tie crowns on our friends. And Be'ezat Hashem, we should be zocheh, that when we treat our friends that way, we'll be zocheh to a true Kabbalat Torah, to a revelation of the time of Mashiach, to the rebuilding of the Bet HaMikdash Mirah, v'yamenu, amen. Right, immediately following Kaddish, we'll have some words of Torah with Rabbi Bragmov. Rabbi